As we approach July 4th, today's video is about patriots, revolution, and the law. We celebrate the signing of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th to commemorate July 4th, 1776. But the seeds of revolution and breaking ties with Great Britain goes back years before 1776, in particular to March 5th, 1770. And that is the day of what has popularly been called the Boston Massacre. And what happened was there was a argument that began between a British officer and a 13-year-old over whether or not a wig had been appropriately paid for. And a private decided to go to the boy and slap him around some to make sure that he knew how to respect a British officer. Well, things kept getting out of hand and the crowd got bigger and bigger and bigger. The church bells rang, and eventually a crowd of 50 people assembled. The commander, Captain Thomas Preston, called in more soldiers, and snowballs were thrown. The crowd was egging the British soldiers to fire. And eventually, one of the British soldiers was knocked down and dropped his musket. He picked it up and he fired it. And ultimately, without an order from Captain Preston to fire, the British troops opened fire on unarmed civilians, and 11 people were hit, 5 were killed. And the legal system at the time was very similar to the English system of law, but not quite identical. And the acting governor promised that there would be a trial. So in light of police shootings and Black Lives Matter, this was a very widely viewed and very hot button topic. And pamphleteers, including Paul Revere, and revolutionaries were quick to get out information about what they called the massacre. John Adams, the second president of the United States, took the case on behalf of Captain Thomas Preston and the soldiers that had fired into the crowd. He was a very effective orator and a fine litigator in jury. And he had a secret weapon. And what had happened was one of the people killed, an individual by the name of Patrick Carr, was an Irishman. And he said that he'd seen people shot by the British in Ireland for far less provocation, and that he felt that what they had done was in self-defense. Now, as it so happens, that's hearsay, but the way that John Adams got the statement in was it was so close to death, it was a dying declaration. And the theory is that when you know you're going to go meet your maker, that you would never lie, because it could curse you to damnation. Adams was successful at getting not guilty verdicts for all but 2 of the soldiers. 2 of the soldiers that had willfully fired directly at unarmed civilians were convicted of manslaughter, but notwithstanding the sentencing that they had, the punishment was reduced down to getting a hot branding iron on their thumb. Not very strong punishment for murdering 5 unarmed civilians. Now, in retrospect, a lot of people consider John Adams a hero because he stood for the proposition that notwithstanding the horrendous nature of what these soldiers had done, that everyone deserves a lawyer and everyone deserves a defense. And that may be true. Everyone does have a right to an attorney. But it doesn't mean that we in the plaintiff's bar, who represent the victims, represent the oppressed, can't hold our heads up with dignity, that we won't take such a case, that we won't defend the indefensible. And to this day, John Adams is my least favorite patriot. And I have the great privilege of representing people that are on the wrong side of oppression. It's a privilege to try juries. It's a privilege to be a member of the plaintiff's bar, and I couldn't be prouder to be part of it.